What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at Bill and Ted Face the Music, the third installment into the Bill and Ted trilogy. Bill and Ted Face the Music's plotline is this. Bill and Ted are now middle-aged men, and they receive a message from this woman named Kelly, who is the daughter of Rufus. This message states that if Bill and Ted don't write a song that will unite the world in harmony, then the entire world will pretty much just turn into destruction and destroy itself. So now Bill and Ted are in a race against time to write the perfect song. That is the overall plot line of Face the Music. Let's talk about it. I think Bill and Ted Face the Music was an excellent movie, no pun intended. This movie was a lot of fun, and also has a very heartfelt, warming message. And it's also a really, really good and genuine passing of the torch type of movie as well. And I think the movie, for the most part, did all those things exceptionally well. Ed Solomon and Chris Matheson returned to pretty much write this movie, and their writing is just as sharp as it was in the first two movies. Not only that, Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, these two were born to play Bill and Ted. These two were born just to be to be a comedic duo. The chemistry with Reeves and Winters, it just never ages. Even though these two have not played these characters in a long time, you wouldn't think that when you watch this movie. They slip into these roles with relative ease, and seeing Bill and Ted as middle-aged men who still act the same way they did in those previous two movies really shows that they never really aged themselves. Despite their physical aging, their mentality never aged, and you can see how that's causing some problems. They have teenage daughters who are pretty much clones of them, and their wives Liz and Joanna are now taking them to marriage counseling. So it's cool seeing how middle-aged Bill and Ted, who never changed, now have to, or pretty much now have to be forced to change. And the performances of Winters and Reeves all throughout this movie is fantastic. No complaints whatsoever. The two actresses who play their daughters, Billy and Thea, who were played by Samara Weaving and Bridget Lundy Payne, respectively, I thought they were really good in their roles as well. And they are pretty much the female versions of Bill and Ted, but with a more modern day spin. And their storyline in this movie is pretty much a mirror of the first movie, as they got to travel through time to find these historical figures. So, because they want to help their dad, put together the most awesome band to write the most awesome song in the universe. So they collect these musical icons like Louis Armstrong, Jimi Hendrix, and Mozart. And not only that, the chemistry with Weaving and Payne, to me, mirrors the chemistry of Reeves and Winters. I would not mind seeing a new trilogy that focuses on the daughters, because I thought they were really good. I thought their on-screen chemistry was really, really solid and was really, really cool. And seeing them play modern versions of Bill and Ted was pretty cool. Was awesome. I loved it. I got no complaints. They didn't dominate the movie or anything like that. But it's an equal. This is how you do equal screen time. This is how you do a passing of the torch. You pay respect to the previous characters, while at the same time you're helping build up the future. And I thought this movie did. It built up Bill and Ted. It wrapped up their storyline as a way to pass the torch off to their daughters. And I think throughout this entire movie, it did it in a very good and subtle way. And the performances match that. Again, Winters and Reeves, fantastic in the roles. Weaving and Payne, just as good as well. If I do have complaints, I think the characters of Liz and Joanna, I don't know why. They're underutilized in the second movie, and to me, they're kind of underutilized in this movie. Their whole thing in this movie is that their older selves are having them travel through time so that they can find the perfect reality that they can be in with Bill and Ted. And I would have liked to have seen scenes of them traveling through those realities, at least one or two scenes of them going to. I've seen Liz and Joanna interact with certain realities where they think they're going to be happy. Because, in the end, they're pretty much happy where they are now in the current reality instead of the other realities that their older selves shown them into. I don't like to see them interacting with their older selves. To me, their scenes are just mostly peppered in and they don't really do much. This movie's mostly dominated by Bill and Ted and Billy and Thea, with Joanna and Liz kind of getting not that much sign. Though I do think the couples therapy scenes are kind of humorous, though not that funny. That's just me personally. Didn't really care for it. But that doesn't mean this movie doesn't have any other gags. So this movie is chock full of good stuff. Hal, the actor who plays Ted's Hal Landon Jr., Ted's dad, he returns for this third movie. He actually gets more screen time than he does in the second two movies, and he and Ted finally have a wrap to their little rivalry where Ted's dad finally believes Ted because there's this robot named Dennis, who is sent by the great leader to kill Bill and Ted, and he accidentally kills Ted's dad and his daughters and the historical figures, and the robot is really, really sorry about that. And Anthony Carrigan, who played the robot, is really, really funny in the role. I would have actually liked to see more of the robot because he was cracking me up. He felt genuine remorse about killing Bill and Ted's family, and he's like, "Oh, mistakes happen. I'm sorry." It's funny. I thought Kerrigan was hilarious as the robot, and when the robot's in hell, you have one of the demons like, "Is that a robot in hell?" It's hysterical stuff. It's funny stuff. But back to Ted's dad. Yeah, at the beginning of this movie, Ted's dad is still like, Ted, you're slacker. You ain't gonna amount to nothing. Your daughters are pretty much like you and Bill. And then when Ted's dad goes to hell, and he realizes that Ted's telling the truth, that kind of brings their relationship full circle. And I like that. It's a good moment between Ted and Ted's dad. It's a nice little wrap up to their little story that was outlined throughout the previous two movies. I thought that had a very satisfying conclusion. I got no complaints about that. And I will say this: this movie brings back William Sadler as Death, and I think Death came back into this movie a little too late. I would have had Death come back maybe 20 minutes before he actually did, because once William Sadler as Death is on screen, he has not missed one beat. You can tell William Sadler has been dying to play Death again, because he eats up every single moment of screen time he's in, and Death, William Sadler, he is just as funny in this movie as he was in the previous movie. And the whole underline of him and the Wild Stallions having a falling out due to the Wild Stallions suing Death because Death wanted to use their name is utterly hilarious. And when the Stallions and Death unite with the help of Billy and Thea, it's actually very heartwarming and very touching seeing Death reunite with Bill and Ted again. And it's fun. It's really, really fun. And the whole scene at the end where they play the song that unites the world, and Bill and Ted realize that it was actually Billy and Thea were the ones that were to bring the world together, was actually pretty cool too. And like I said, a very, very good and very, very touching passing of the torch type of moment that really sets up the new generation that sets up the next generation basically. So I like all that stuff. I thought the stuff was great. And I also like the whole running joke of Missy. That's right. Missy, who was in the first two movies, she's now back in this movie. In the first two movies, she was married to Bill and Ted's dad. In this movie, she's married to Ted's little brother, Deacon. And it's hilarious and weird. It is pretty funny. And yeah, that's pretty much all that. So yeah, those are just my overall thoughts on Bill and Ted Face the Music. I like this movie. I like the gags in this movie. I like how Bill and Ted, when they travel through time, they see different versions of themselves, which is utterly hysterical. And they also meet a version of their older selves, which is a very poignant and very, very touching scene. And if that scene doesn't, make your heart tug a little bit, then there's something wrong with you. And I also like when they see themselves in prison, which is a very funny scene. And when they're in Dave Grohl's house. That was a funny scene as well, too. All right, so yeah, this review was very disjointed and all over the place, but those are my thoughts on Bill and Ted Face the Music. I'm going to give it an overall 8 out of 10. It's a worthy addition to the Bill and Ted trilogy. It's a good send-off for Bill and Ted as characters, and a good launching point for Billy and Thea to kind of take over the mantles of their dads. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Bill and Ted Face the Music, 8 out of 10. Let me know your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Like this video and subscribe. And I will check you back next time for more.